What is thought to be dedication is just the way, oftentimes, when it comes to diet. My way of dieting, the ways I've dieted over the years, whether it be low carb or whether it be low fat, in both cases, people could view that as some form of dedication or even some form of deprivation, almost like you're missing out on something. But I would say in both cases, in the case of extreme low carb, where I wasn't eating fruit and stuff like that, that did feel like I was missing out on something, because I do think that the body really does need sugar. And it's not that I don't think the body needs fat. I just think the body can really run off of low amounts of fat because we have fat on our own body that we can utilize. So anyway, what I want to say is most people don't really need a diet. They need motivation. They need to be inspired. They need to feel good about what they're doing. They need to get results. I'll tell you the proof of it. The proof of it is this, is that it's been proven, it's been shown that the faster that people get results, the more likely they are to stick to a diet. So that's actually interesting, because that kind of is counterintuitive to sometimes what you hear of, like, don't lose weight too fast. Well, look, man, if you're really fat, you should be losing weight pretty fast. If you're really fat, you should lose weight really fast. Real fat, real fast. That's the way it should work. If you're 60, 80, 100, 200 pounds overweight, you should be able to lose weight pretty fast, especially in the beginning. Maybe you lose 40 pounds, 60 pounds, and then maybe it slows down to some degree, right? And I'm not promoting speed on any of this, because I don't think that's the route to go, but it is interesting. Why is that? Why would someone be more willing to stick to a plan when they see the results quick? Well, because they're actually seeing results, right? And the results are coming fast, but what is it doing? It's motivating them. The second that you hear from the person in the cubicle next to you, or the person, your aunt, your uncle, your in-laws, or whoever, you go over their house for Thanksgiving this year or Christmas, and they go, wow, I go, have you done something? What's going on over here? And it's clear. Look, it should be clear that you're losing weight if you're trying to lose weight, and if you are someone that's very heavy. Again, if you're in that range of being, like, I would say more than 25 pounds overweight, I would say. Not just somebody having 25 pounds of body fat, somebody being like 25 pounds, being clearly way fatter than they used to be. Let's just put it that way. You know who you are. And then also you can see it on people when people's faces are bloated, when people's bodies look bloated, that kind of bird body that people get, and that upper belly chub that people get up here, that a lot of men get, or that bird build, I kind of call it, where the limbs are skinny and the body is real fat. You see that in a lot of Indian population, and that's a major problem. That's a huge reason why a lot of them are getting diabetes. They have this kind of like vegan or this vegetarian, I guess you'd say, lifestyle, but they're eating tons of macronutrients that don't go together very well. Fats and carbohydrates don't blend, they don't mix very well. And we see this a lot in Mexican population as well. And nobody really ever wants to talk about the races. They don't like talking about the races, but there's differences in races. And Caucasians, for example, Caucasian Americans, and I don't know the how in depth this goes, because I have never really looked into it that deep, but there's a maximum fat threshold amongst white folks, that we can have a maximum fat threshold that's higher than most people, meaning that we can be extremely fat and have less negative health outcomes. Is that some sort of adaptation that's happened over time because we've eaten so many Doritos and peanut butter cups, or because America? I don't know. But a lot of it's really interesting. And it's clear that different races store body fat in different ways. It's just clear. It's clear as a bell. Now, nowadays, you're starting getting a lot more people are blending. People are mixed, right? And so there's a lot of different shit going on with genetics. And I think in the end, we will all be a little mixed. But anyway, back to the matter at hand, the idea of you being disciplined with your diet. What looks to be discipline oftentimes is just somebody simply doing what they like to do, doing what they enjoy. For me, I enjoy eating rice and lean meat. I like it. I don't necessarily love it. Would I rather eat the rice with a ribeye and some teriyaki sauce on that? Hell yeah, I would. That would be awesome. But not really, because I want the results. I want good aesthetics, and I also want good health. But for me, I guess at 48 years old, if I'm being completely honest, the aesthetics are a big part of it. I still want to basically do the best I can at looking my best. And that might mean that I'm willing to put in a 90% effort each day. And then maybe there's a couple things that aren't, 100% dedicated to my exact plan or diet, or maybe 95%. But there's things that I'll do, that I'll eat, that I don't need to eat, that are still in the way of me being 100%, but I don't want to be 100%. And the reason why I don't want to be 100% is because I don't want to randomly fall off. What I found is that when I ride in the 90 percentile range and the 95 percentile range, meaning that's my adherence to my diet, that's the best diet for me to carry forward with, and that's the best diet for me to do, because I can sustain it for a really long time without thinking about peanut butter cups, chocolate chip cookies, and all these things. You guys saw me eat a peanut butter cup recently. A friend of mine asked me, hey, when's the last time you just had like a bacon cheeseburger? And look, dude, from fast food or something, it's been a bacon cheeseburger from a fast food restaurant. It's been at least a decade, because bacon from a fast food restaurant's a big no-no. It's disgusting. A bacon cheeseburger or a cheeseburger from a regular restaurant, it's been a long time. I mean, I could be missing something. I could be forgetting something, but it's been at least a year, if not 2 years, if not maybe even more than that. I don't really even know. And what I told him was I said, if I was going to make a cheeseburger, I would make it at home. I would go over to Nugget Market over here, that's down the street from my house. I would grab some buns that I thought were good. I love pretzel buns. And I would make that shit at home with 85-15 grass-fed, grass-finished lean ground beef. I might cook up a couple other burgers that are 93.7, just so I can enjoy even more burgers, but I'd make one burger fat and juicy probably. Maybe two. And yeah, eat it with the bun and everything. Maybe I'd have one bun on one thing and then no buns on the other one or something. I don't know. I'd figure out a way to make it make sense for me. Then I would probably cook some like home fry style potatoes that I cooked in my air fryer, that I baked in my air fryer, rather than having French fries. I think French fries are garbage. I think they're a waste of time. I'm not a fan. I never liked French fries. I know some of you may think that's blasphemy, but I just think it's a shit food. I don't think it even tastes that good. The second they get a little bit cool, they're like worthless. I could eat a couple French fries and be like, yeah, that's good. Now, if we were to throw cheese on the French fries, like the fatter you get, the more on board I am with what you're saying. But I wouldn't eat it because of the fat content. Anyway, how do you get motivated? How do you get fired up? Well, tune into what I'm doing. Tune into this channel. Subscribe to this channel. We have some paid content as well, where we're doing a little extra content for some of the people that are paying. We're doing some live Q&As and a bunch of other stuff, but a lot of people maybe just aren't aware of it yet, or even aware of where to sign up. And I don't even know where to sign up, but I know you could do it through YouTube. But we're going to be adding more and more, and so you got to be a little patient with me. I'm going to continue to work on some of that. But aside from that, how do you be motivated with your, I'll just give you the information right now. The way that you're motivated is to find foods you're interested in. So remember what I've been preaching. You have three options. Option number one is to basically run off of fat. Option number two is to basically run off of carbohydrates. And option number three is to run off of both, but to count your calories, track your macros, whatever you want to call that. Because once you do that, now you are responsible, and you're not going to eat so much of any one thing that it's going to put you over the edge and make you, and quote unquote, make you fat. Making you fat, we know, is by overeating, but it's harder to overeat when you're eating a lot of protein and when you're eating very low fat. So that's what I choose to do. And I'm still learning and I'm still growing. I know some guys are even fans of like not jacking the protein up too high. Some people will go about half their body weight in grams of protein. But for me, for right now, with the hypertrophy workouts that I'm doing, I'm going to start to add some running back in. With the way that I lift, it just doesn't make sense for me to have my protein be too low. Now, my protein is low on days where I utilize a sugar fast. The sugar fast, again, is fruit juice, maple syrup, honey, table sugar, and some candy. Shit like that. And I'll still do that, 1 to 2 times a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. It just sort of depends. And when I do that, on those days, I'll have about half my body weight in protein, and I'll do it later in the day because I'm sugar fasting. I'm utilizing an intermittent sugar fast, or you can call it a fruit fast. You can kind of call it whatever way you want to decipher it out in your head to make it make the most sense. But so when you're thinking about which diet you're going to select, it has to be something of interest. So which one of those 3 sounds the most interesting to you? I'm not a fan of tracking calories. I don't like tracking calories. I don't like tracking anything. And more recently, I've been on the bandwagon with Cole Robinson to try some of his suggestions of not weighing myself. So I haven't weighed myself nearly as much. I just do a little check-in here and there. And I'm around 200. I was 220 pounds this morning. I was 218 yesterday. And so the last maybe 3-4 days, I've weighed myself just to kind of get a little track of like where I was again. And that feels really good. And that's about 10 pounds up from where I was. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that 10 pound swing. Like, you guys see the pictures. You guys see me online. I'm jacked as, right? And I'm still staying very lean. Not quite as lean as I was before, but I'll pull that all back in, and I'll rein that back in really soon. And I'll get more shreddy poo coming up. And that, I might do that in like November, December, more towards my birthday. I might try to lean out at that time and see if I can finally get down to that 200 I've been talking about for so long. But these goals, they don't matter to me that much in terms of like when they happen. Like, they don't have to happen today. They don't even have to happen tomorrow. They don't have to happen in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. If they happen within the next 2-3 years, that's awesome. And that's what a lot of you need, is you need the motivation to hang in there for a really long time. Because if you're 60 pounds overweight, you're going to be on some sort of diet plan the rest of your life from here on out. Like, if you have an awakening tomorrow that you're too fat, you have an awakening tomorrow that you're not exercising enough and you're not eating enough, you're going to be doing that for the rest of your life. That's the way that it works. You don't get an opportunity to be off of that. There might be little mini vacations away from some of the food and some of the diet, but the exercise. But what you'll find every single time and twice on Sunday is that it's not worth it. And then you'll stop making those. You won't do that shit again, because you're like, every time I do that, I just sort of fall off. And what you're going to recognize too is there is no on and off. And when there is no on and off, you don't need motivation. It just is part of your character. A character is a completely fashioned will. There's a quote that I really love that talks about, I got to think about what it is. It's often perseverance in disguise. Oh, that which dazzles mortal eyes is often perseverance in disguise. That which dazzles mortal eyes is oft but perseverance in disguise. I think that's amazing. I think that's an amazing quote. But even with that quote, you don't even necessarily need perseverance, because what you're doing is not hard, because it's interesting to you, because you love it. So if you pick a higher fat diet, and we can go over that in some other videos, like how to do the high fat diet without it, kind of slowing your metabolism down and stuff. I think you take little, you maybe once a week or so, you carb up a little bit, and you go low fat, high carb, for maybe a day or day and a half, and do some training On the weekend, maybe a little depletion workout, deplete some of those carbohydrates, fill those carbohydrates back up as soon as you're done with, say, like a Saturday morning workout. And then Saturday, Sunday, eat a little bit more carbs to keep the fats low or something like that. That might be a really good plan for somebody that is typically during the week following a lower carbohydrate diet where the fat content is a little bit higher. One thing I should mention is, and I need to get away from saying this too, is like a low carb diet does not need to be a high fat diet. And and the reverse is also true. A low fat diet does not need to be high carb. Okay? Like high carb to me would be 300 to 400 and upward. Okay? Just because you're getting rid of fat does not all of a sudden mean that you need 600 to 800 grams of carbohydrates every day. It actually might be in your best interest to do around 200 grams of carbs here and there if your main goal is some weight loss. You still have plenty of recovery, metabolism should still be cranking. It shouldn't be a real issue if you're just doing it periodically. And that's why John Heck, with his high, low, medium days, is a genius. And he's not the inventor or creator. I know John Meadows and other people have pushed this carb cycling stuff for years and years, and it has a lot of merit. That might be a beautiful diet for some of you to follow, because you know what? You get to do all of it. You get to continually switch those macros. So maybe that'd be something you could look into. And maybe that's like kind of a fourth style almost of dieting, even though it's sort of a mix of all three. I guess it is a fourth style. But I think a lot of times in people's efforts with cardio, with people's efforts with lifting, and with people's efforts with dieting, sometimes what they're asking themselves to do is too difficult. Like they'll wake up Monday morning and they'll be like, okay, cottage cheese, a slice of pineapple, a piece of toast. And then they go off to work, and then they have cravings and they're like dying for a burrito. And maybe they still make it through that day, doing well with their food, but they had so much food noise all day because they tried to eat foofy bullshit, stupid stuff. They had a salad at lunch, but they didn't get any, they had no dressing on it, and it had some chicken breast in it and stuff like that. And they made great decisions, because dressing is bullshit. It's a thing that none of us need. We don't need dressing. Dressing is pure garbage. Dressing is pure garbage. Dressing and sauces that contain a lot of calories and contain fat in them are garbage. They're all trash. You do not need them. Even olive oil, to a certain extent, I think is trash. But if I was going to use olive oil, I'll just use a small amount of it, or macadamia nut oil, or any of these oils. I'm not a fan of any of these oils. I don't think they really make a lot of sense. I think oil is very similar to like when people would complain about people drinking juice. And if juice is a problem, then why wouldn't olive oil and all the other oils be an issue too? Sometimes you do need, like if you're trying to make egg whites, you do need something to cook with. So I'll use like either beef tallow or some coconut oil. But I use very small amounts of it. I grease the pan with it, and then I dump it. Hold on a second. Let me get rid of this phone call here. Okay. Back to the matter at hand. Anyway, motivation. Like, keep tuning into me, because I'm going to bring it as much as I possibly can, and I'm going to communicate with you guys even when I'm driving down the goddamn street. I'm going to record as many videos as I possibly can to communicate to you guys, to get you to understand that I'm not a freak. I'm not a mutant. I'm just a kid from Poughkeepsie that I fell in love with training as a kid. It's my main interest. And then a cascade of disciplines were sprung from that. What is your passion? What do you love? Remember the Ultimate Warrior? He said, what's your passion? And he said his passion is passion, which is kind of funny and kind of sounds crazy. But honestly, like, what's your passion? What are you fired up about? What are you excited about? If you're excited and fired up about running, if you're excited and funning about jiu-jitsu, if you're excited and fired up about lifting or rock climbing or cycling or track, just football, any of these things, it should cause a cascade of disciplines, because not everyone is cut out to be a champion, and not everyone's cut out to hear the following message. If you want to be a champion, you're going to be disciplined with all aspects of the game, including taking a day off, including getting proper sleep, including putting your phone away on time, including saying no to certain things, including making sacrifices on certain days, missing Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, missing certain things. I'm not saying that you always have to do those things, but they're part of it. They are a part of it. If you love it, you will find a way to do it, and it won't feel, you'll be pulled towards it rather than trying to crawl towards it. You'll feel that way because it's your interest. Again, if you think you're some badass in jiu-jitsu, I want to ask you about your diet. Oh, you just eat whatever you want? You don't care about jiu-jitsu nearly as much as I thought. Oh, you just go to bed whenever you'd like? Okay. You still can tie me up in a pretzel because I don't have any skill with jiu-jitsu. And you still might be able to tie up a lot of other people. But are you doing your best? It doesn't even matter if you're top of the food chain. You could be Gordon Ryan. Could somebody like that do better? The answer is always yes. There's always room. There was room for Kobe Bryant to be better. There was room for Michael Jordan to be better. And that's why those guys started to add stuff onto their career. Jordan didn't lift forever. Imagine that. Professional basketball player. Dominating. He was unbelievable. But he had no strength training routine until the Detroit Pistons beat the shit out of him. Imagine if he did have a strength training routine and it worked. He would have been able, the Detroit Pistons wouldn't have existed. Maybe he needed them. Maybe he needed that rival. I don't know. But you guys see what I'm getting at? Everyone can be better. The Rock or any of these people John Cena, any of these people, could you get better? They would be like, I'm working on it all the time. Everybody is working on it. It's a work in progress. And if you're dedicated to this game, and if you love this game, you're going to let the cascades of disciplines, you're going to let them fall into place, and you're going to allow them to help you continue to get better. Because if you love lifting, but you're not consuming enough protein every day, you don't love it as much as you thought you did. It's that simple. You either really love it the way that you're touting, or you don't. If you love bodybuilding, but you walk around at 15 and 20% body fat all the time, and you never get down into single digits, you don't love bodybuilding as much as you think you do. You're a poser, is what it's called. Think about it. Think about it. Now, is this some motivational speech? Maybe it is. Maybe it was. Motivation is fleeting, but that's why I consume dosages of it and dish it out every single day. You're going to need it often. You're going to need it more often than you even, I would say, brush your teeth, but I know a lot of you guys don't brush your teeth. You're going to need it more often than you take a shit. Motivation. And then some people think because of that, they think it's worthless, but no, it's not worthless. I want you to be interested in what you're doing, interested enough that you're a savage about it, but I also want you to snort up some motivation whenever you get the opportunity. Motivation would be you leaning into these things. It would be you taking advantage of certain things at certain times. Being well rested will be a motivator when you wake up the next day. Having your clothes laid out the night before will be a motivator when you wake up the next day and that shit's already done. When you've taken out the trash at night and put the garbage bag back in there, you refilled the water thing, you did all this stuff the night before. When you wake up the next day and you see that that's set, that is one extra deterrent that's out of the way. And you can look at it as a motivator. Oh, thank God I did that last night. Because, man, I only got a couple minutes, right? Instead of being like, oh, I'm going to probably be late again. And being low energy, low frequency, being tired. And then when you're tired, fatigued, and you're behind, when you're behind is when you lose. And we need to figure out a way to be ahead. A way to be ahead is to follow your interest. Which diet do you want to do? I just gave you 4 different options. You got the high, low, medium days, the carb cycling. You got you have a low-fat diet. You have you have a low-carb diet, and you also have counting your calories, tracking your macros, and so forth. You could pick any of them, but you need to stick to them. Stick to them to 30 days. And then when one just maybe doesn't quite work or you're having a hard time with the adherence, switch to another one. That's the beauty of all this. Keep it going. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.